All right, so yesterday we learned about vocabulary. So let's first review some vocabulary. Can somebody raise their hand and name me a pair of alternate exterior angles? Alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior. 1 and 7, she says. Do we agree? Yes. If I look at 1 and 7, they're alternating my transversal, and they're on the outside of my parallel lines. All right, who can name me a set of alternate interior angles? Alternate interior, yes, sir. That would be same side interior. Alternating, remember they have to split the transversal. 5 and 3. So if I look at my parallel lines, do you see that transversal? 5 and 4 are on the same side of the transversal. But 5 and 3 are on the opposite sides of that transversal. Yes? You can write next to it. You can glue the bottom half. You'll have enough room to write next to it or around it. That's fine. You'll still have enough room. Okay. So part of that, of labeling that transversal and those parallel lines, I've labeled them with numbers, is so we could do vocabulary. That could be one way that they ask you. They might ask you, angles 1 and 3 are which type of angles? And you might have vertical, alternate interior, corresponding. So you'd have to pick your answer choice of your vocabulary word. The other way might be, they might give you a degree measurement. They might say something like, angle 2 is 50 degrees. What is the measure of angle 8? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take that knowledge that we know about angles, and we're going to be able to find measurement values, okay? But before we do that, because I'm going to show you a way that makes it pretty simple. First, let's review obtuse and acute angles. What is an obtuse angle? Greater than 90, but less than 180, yes. What's an acute angle? Less than 90, a cute little angle. All right. Look at angle number 1. Is that obtuse or acute? Obtuse. Label that, please. Obtuse. O-B-T-U-S-E. Obtuse. What about angle 2? Is that obtuse or acute? Acute. Label it. Angle 3. It's not a right angle, it's obtuse. Right would be exactly 90 degrees. This is bigger than 90. So it is obtuse. And number 4, acute. And there's a reason why I'm making you label every angle. Bear with me. Number 5, is that obtuse or acute? Obtuse, label it. What about number 6? Acute. Label it. Number 7, obtuse. And number 8, acute. If whenever you see parallel lines in a transversal, if you'll just take a minute and a half and label these, it will make your life so nice. It'll help your brain when you're trying to figure out measurement values, okay? Here's why. Let's put a star. You can do it below it, next to it, anywhere next to it. All acute angles are congruent. What does congruent mean? Equal, they are the same. So if I told you that angle 2 was 50 degrees and it's acute, what is angle 4 that's also acute? 50 degrees. Because if they're congruent, then that means every angle that is acute in this picture will have the same measurement. Okay? Every angle will have the same measurement if they're all acute. Same thing for obtuse. All obtuse angles are congruent. So make sure you write down all acute angles are congruent and all obtuse angles are congruent. So if I said angle 7 is 100 degrees, what's the measure of angle 5? Well, if angle 7 is obtuse and it's 100 degrees, this obtuse angle has to measure what? 100 degrees because they're congruent. They're both obtuse and they're both the same measurement. If angle 7 is 100 degrees, what is the measure of angle 1? 100 degrees, how do you know? Because they're both obtuse. See the pattern? All the acute angles are congruent to each other. All the obtuse angles are congruent. Now let's look at just angle 1 and 2. Those are supplementary angles. Do they make a straight line? Put them together, they make that straight line, right? Straight lines have to add up to be what? So you're telling me this obtuse angle and this acute angle have to add up to be 180? Yes, they do. What about if I looked at 1 and 4? Do they make a straight line? So what do they have to add up to be? 180. Okay. What about, maybe I want to go look at this linear pair. 7 and 8. Do they make a straight line? So what do they have to add up to be? Is that going to work for every acute and obtuse pair? Are they always going to have to add up to 180 on this? They always make that linear pair, that straight line. So let's write that down. Our last little star point. An obtuse angle, obtuse plus an acute, add up to be what? 180 degrees. Obtuse plus acute have to add up to be 180 degrees. All right, let's test this out. Let's do some true-false. Find in your head an alternate interior angles. Find a pair of alternate interior angles. True or false? Alternate interior angles are congruent. True. Because if I use 3 and 5, they're both obtuse. If I used 4 and 6, they're both acute, so they're congruent to each other. True or false? Alternate exterior angles are congruent. True, very good. Do you see how just by labeling them with acute and obtuse, it makes it really easy? Same side, true or false? Same side interior angles are congruent. Same sign. Who can name me a pair of same sign interior angles? I heard 4 and 5. Are 4 and 5 the same type of angles? One's acute, one's obtuse. Does that mean they're congruent? No, that is a false statement. Okay? All right. Now that we know a little bit of how this works with congruence, let's do a little bit of practice. Okay, at home, can you see my slide that I put up? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome, thank you. Okay, first one, take a look at the picture. Think about classifying. Are they both obtuse? Are they both congruent? Or do they have to add up to be 180? Well, let's think about it. 136. If I had to classify, is that obtuse or acute? Obtuse. So if this was my test paper, I might make myself a note that it's obtuse. What about angle X? Is that obtuse or acute? So are they going to be the same, or are they going to add up to 180? So what's the value of X? 136. See how easy that was? Just by knowing acute and obtuse. They always have to give you at least one angle measurement. Okay? Next one. Think about it. Think about it and find the value of X. Think about what's happening. Are they going to be the same, or do they have to add up to 180? They have to add up to 180, okay. So what's the value of X? What do you think? He says 55. Would you agree or disagree? Agree, because 125 plus 55 degrees does add up to be 180. How did you know that they weren't congruent? How did you know that they had to add up? Good, because one was obtuse and this was acute. They're not the same. Next one. Think about it. What is the value of angle X? Raise your hand when you get it. What's the value of angle X? It should be pretty quick. Yes. 53 degrees. How do you know? Right, because they're both acute angles, so they must be congruent. So X is equal to 53 degrees. Very good. Think about this one. What is the value of X? What's the value of X? Think about it. Are they both acute or both obtuse, or are they different? Are they the same type of angles or different type of angles? Okay, let's walk through 61. Is that acute or obtuse? Acute. Remember, acute is less than 90. So is this, and remember, a 90-degree angle, guys, if you remember, looks like that. It's a straight line. So is this smaller or bigger than 90 degrees? It's smaller, so it's an acute angle as well. So they're both acute, so is the measurement going to be the same or different? What does it say about all acute angles? Congruent, and that means what? The same. So if they're both acute and they're both the same, what's the measurement of X? If they're both the same, look up here. Nope, this is right here. This is A. So what is that measurement if they have to be the same? 61, you got it. 61 degrees. All right, look at that one. What is the measure of angle X? Angle X. Yes. How do you know? Good. It is 113 degrees because they are both obtuse. Last one. What is the value of X? Yes. Oh, you have a question? Right? When they're different? Okay, so back to this one. Did you see how they were both acute? So then the measurements have to be the same because the angles are both the same. They're both acute. Yep, you're right. Just kind of tilted. So then let's look at this one. 74 degrees. Is that acute or obtuse? acute. But what about x? Is that acute or obtuse? Obtuse. So I have to think 74 plus x has to give me 180. So then how could I find out what x is? Tell me what I would do. Yes, I would take 180 minus 74. And what did you get for your answer? 106. No. Yes, 106. So this is 106 degrees. Does that make sense a little bit better? Okay, all right. Okay, so that was our practice. Yep, that was the last one. First thing I noticed, I see parallel lines in a transversal. I need to go label my angles as obtuse or acute. So let's do that. Angle 1, obtuse or acute. So I'm just going to put a little A here. I don't have room to write the whole thing. What about 2, obtuse or acute? This is just helping our brain remember, are they acute or obtuse? Number 3, acute. If you're in class, you don't need computers right now. Number 4, obtuse, label it. Let's go back to the beginning to number 5, obtuse. 6, 7, obtuse, and 8, acute. So we just have that strategy to help our brain out. Please turn your computer off if you're in class. Close it down. Thank you. All right, so let's go see what it's asking. Now we're ready to read. For numbers 1 through 6, it says classify each pair of angles as alternate interior, alternate exterior, or corresponding. All right, so number 1 is number 1 and 8. Put your fingers on 1 and 8. Are those alternating interior, alternating exterior, or corresponding? Alternating exteriors. What about number 2? 5 and 7. So find 5, find 7. Alternating interior, alternating exterior, or corresponding? Corresponding, very good. See how they want you to do that for numbers 1 through 6. All right, let's skip down to 7 through 12. Here's where I was talking about where they're going to give you a measurement, and they want you to find all of these. And believe it, we can find all of these measurements just by knowing one angle in our picture. So they tell us angle 4 is 122 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and label that 122 degrees. And in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, so my obtuse angles, every obtuse angle here is 122 degrees. So now let's see what they ask. They're asking for angle 8. Find angle 8. Is it another obtuse angle? No, it's acute. So what do we have to do? Right, because I know that this obtuse and this acute have to add up to be 180. So to find it, I can subtract. Use your calculator. What is the measure of angle 8? Do you agree or disagree? Use your calculators. You have calculators. 180 minus 122. How much is it? 58 degrees. I could go ahead and even write it here, 58 degrees. Now, I have everything I need to know. In this picture, every obtuse angle is going to measure what? 122. And every acute angle is going to measure what? All right, so now let's go look at number 8. Measure 5. Find 5. Is 5 obtuse or acute? So what's it going to measure? 122. Let's go to number 2. Is number 2 obtuse or acute? So what's it going to measure? 122. Let's look at number 1. Is number 1 obtuse or acute? Acute. What did we say all the acute angles are going to measure? 58. See how easy that is once we just label it? All right, you have the rest of the class period to finish your homework.